all gas, no brakes. And I never felt comfortable again playing in the NFL. Like, no, you cannot be comfortable. You always have to keep your foot on the gas. You always have to be giving it your all, like Coach was telling me during that game, if you want to make it in this league.
What's up, podcast family? We are here in the Podium Lab in the middle of December, the day after Mommy Mina's birthday. So, Mommy Mina from the Podium podcast family, happy belated birthday. Man, we've got my guy. And listen, I think this one's going to be I know it's going to be a real treat, but I need to start off by saying thank you because my man just boarded a flight from the Orlando area to come to Detroit in December. And we agreed you would only do this for a brother. And so it warmed my heart.
Yes, sir.
That you agreed to come up in December. 12-year NFL veteran. My man Desmond Clark is one of the top tight ends that have ever played the game. Today, he is the president of Bear Down Logistics, 2 times author, motivational speaker. But I think the biggest storyline that we want to end the conversation with today is the season and the chapter that Desmond is in today, which is absolutely obsessed about pouring into others, helping them achieve the dreams that they have in their mind's eye through his leadership in team development, coaching, and speaking business. So, Des, brother, it's December 12th. It's like 0 degrees outside. Thanks for shooting up here from Florida.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. From 75 to 17. But you know what? If I'm going to do it for anybody, I'm going to do it for you. So it's my pleasure. My pleasure.
And we got to just kick off the show by telling me the story of what happened when you boarded your flight in Orlando wearing your Chicago Bears hoodie heading to Detroit.
Yeah. So Detroit, y'all have some good fans here. But let me just start off by saying that Detroit, when I played with the Bears, people automatically assumed that Green Bay was my most hated rival. It was Detroit. It still is Detroit. And here's why. You guys had a guy by the name of Ndamukong Suh. I thought that he was the dirtiest player. I would have loved to have him on my team, but since he wasn't on my team, then I hated him, right? And then they had a couple good seasons.
Hold on. He's like one of the nicest guys.
I know, but that's what I know.
He is one of the nicest guys when he's not trying to murder you on the field.
But on the field, he's a totally different. I've seen a couple interviews with this dude. I was like, hold on, is he putting on an act here? But then I really seen that this guy is like a really and very smart dude too.
Brilliant.
Like, but yeah, on the field he's an animal. And so every time it was a few times that Detroit had a few good teams when I played, and when they had those couple good teams, like they talked the most trash out of anybody, and in particular their safety Louis Dowmans. But now he's a Florida guy. I get it. But at the same time, when you're losing 28-7, there's not a whole lot of room to talk trash. So Detroit, I have a love and hate relationship with you. But when I got on the plane today and I had on the Bears gear, they attacked me right away. Right away. As soon as I stepped on, go Lions. And I wanted to say something, but I had nothing to say. Because Detroit is like the best team in the NFL right now. So what can I say?
Hey, that's that Dan Campbell effect, right? There is no one with any courage to say anything right now other than they are the best team in the NFL today.
Right. And as much as I want to hate, as much as I don't like Detroit from my days in Chicago, you got to go with the truth. And the truth is, this is a damn good football team, and it's the most complete football team. And they're still doing it without their defensive end on the field. And,
yes.
And that's even more impressive.
Yeah. Take a second to send my love to Khalif Raymond, my boy. Hope he continues to heal up and hits the field here really soon. They're going to have an incredible run. I mean, there is no reason, no tangible reason that anyone can put a finger on and say this is why they won't win the Super Bowl. So we'll pray for them. We'll cheer for them.
I don't know if I'm doing all that now.
Well, I will.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, it's still bear down in the Amezcua household.
Yes, sir.
So look, I mean, I love having these conversations. I mean, for you, this is like, it's like I'm cheating life because we've become such dear friends over such a long time that, the conversation we're going to have today, I know so much of it, but I mean, for our listeners, especially those listeners here in the Michigan market who weren't as familiar with you, with the exception of hating you for never dropping a pass during your 12-year career as a tight end. Let's start off with the childhood. You have some stories that you've shared over the last 20 years that I've heard you share publicly, privately, that I think have really created the man Desmond Clark today. But let's take it as young as you can and talk a little bit about what it was like growing up in Florida. Third of four boys, mom, dad. Tell the story.
Yeah, so early on, it was just three of us. My youngest brother, he's 12 years younger than I am. So for 12 years, I was the youngest brother. So I go all the way back to when I was 5, 6, 7 years old, and we lived on this street called Roselle Avenue in Lakeland, Florida. And the neighborhood was great. Mom, dad in the house. Times were good. We always just have these cookouts and barbecues and go out in the park and, have softball games and things like that. Just to kind of draw a picture, an illustration of how our household was, like for a dinner table. And it was just a small 2-bedroom apartment. But when I was like 5, 6, 7 years old, that apartment was the greatest thing alive.
Yes, sir.
We didn't have a dinner table. We had a pool table in the dinner table's place. So that kind of gives you kind of the culture of the house. It was a fun household. But then just like that, it seemed like it all changed. It went from having barbecues to my dad selling off the go-karts and the motorcycle. And then he's out of the house, him and my mom having these arguments and fights. And now we're getting kicked out and going from one family member house to another family member house until we get down to a neighborhood called the Black Bottom in Lakeland, Florida. And we settled down in this shabby little 2-bedroom apartment. And the thing that really sticks out about those two different times, right, from having a really nice apartment to going to that apartment in the Black Bottom, is we didn't have lights when we were in that apartment in the Black. We didn't have a refrigerator. So we were really, really struggling. But at the same time, I don't know how my mom did it, but she kept us out of trouble. She kept us believing in her. And eventually we got out of that. But when I was 8, 9, 10, kind of trying to understand what was going on, it really caught me, and it presented itself to why we were in that situation. That's when I found out that my dad had a crack addiction. And that was the reason that, we went from, having go-karts and motorcycles to not having anything. So, but looking back on those times, I wouldn't trade them because like you said earlier, those are the times that made me who I am today, going through the tough times, seeing how my mom persevered through all of that. And to this day, man, I still don't know how she can do that, like with 3 boys at the time, and really build herself back up to where she got a good career and took care of us, and not just like we had the bare minimum. Like we had a decent, we was on Section 8, but we still had a decent upbringing, and that was because she made herself better.
I appreciate you sharing that because I know it's never easy to go back to some of those moments or seasons in our life that may have had more pain than joy in them, more disappointment than happiness. But when I've listened to you speak and I've read your 2 books, and all of which have been a blessing to have those as examples and things for me to reflect on, I have noticed that sports mentors, coaches have had such a big impact on where you ended up: college, professional football, entrepreneur, speaker, author today. Talk a little bit about your love for sports, and maybe share a story or two of like when you first were like, oh yeah, man, I'm going to be an athlete.
Yeah. That just came from the neighborhood.
Yeah,
That came from, a lot of people growing up like me and my brothers, right? My brothers were just as competitive. I think it's between my oldest brother and my youngest brother who's the best athlete. Because he was a guy that was doing backward flips and all kind of gymnastic type things. But that love for competition in sports just came, hey, you guys live on this side of town, or, a few blocks over. We live a few blocks over here. Let's get together and see who got the best football team. Let's get together and see who has the best basketball team. And that's what really kind of got us going as athletes. I'll say this. Coaches had a lot to do, and I'm saying this for the younger listener. Coaches had a lot to do with it, but it was at the age of 14, after seeing my dad, been around after he had been shot 3 times, third time being shot and blinded, and then going into the crack houses where he was at, lighting his crack pipe for him, watching him get high, all of that type of stuff. It was at the age of 14 where I made a decision that I wanted to do something different. And I believe that was the catalyst for everything else, right? Making that decision. Now you bring in the Coach J's, Coach Joyner, Coach Jackson. And I say that in that manner because if someone is not open to the mentorship, someone is not open to the tutelage, if someone is going through a tough situation and their perspective is one of negativity and not, hey, how can I turn this into something positive? I know I'm going through a lot of BS right now, but let me take that and channel that the right way and let me use it. That was my mindset. I said I wanted to be something different than what I was seeing every day. So now the coaches had this clay that they can mold because, just tell me what I need to do, right? And I talk about Coach Joyner not letting me quit my middle school football team.
Yeah, share that story because I love I love the career you had as a center.
It was short-lived, and it almost been the end of my career. So I played either running back or quarterback all over the league. And then I get to middle school, Coach Joyner, we're going to have you play center. No, you're not. So the next day I tried to quit. And, back in those days, we're talking about like the late 80s, early 90s, the coaches had these big station wagons. They put all the balls in the back, and he rolled up on me in that station wagon, and he got out of the car, and I just always remember the finger being in my face and saying, and this is what he said: get your ass back in the car. I'm not going to let you quit, and you're not going to be a quitter. And he said it in a more forceful tone, right? So I got back in the car. I didn't quit. And at the end of that year, I won Best Lineman of the Year. But what that taught me is that it's not just about me, right? We had a bunch of good athletes. The guys that ended up playing quarterback, they were good athletes too, right? But it wasn't about me. And I became like a really good teammate. And I believe that was the start of me learning how to be a good teammate.
Yeah.
So Coach Joyner, man, I'm glad he didn't let me quit.
Coach Joyner, I hope he got you some tickets or a jersey or something, because clearly you're a big reason why he made it to the NFL.
Absolutely.
Right? I love that story. And there's more Coach J's. Obviously, I know the stories, right? But begin to take us into those high school years. You talked about some of these significant moments that happened in and around the age of 14 at home. You went into high school. I mean, I was thinking back, it was Kathleen High School, right?
Yep.
Wasn't it?
Kathleen.
Yeah. I mean, you played baseball, basketball, and football at Kathleen High School. You were competitive in every single sport. Talk about the other Coach J's and the impact that they had and the influence they had on you. Because at the end of the day, I mean, you finished your high school career as a standout football player.
And basketball player.
And
don't forget about that one. I was all-state in basketball also.
He was. I'm sorry, folks. Desmond was also all-state in basketball. Holly, why didn't you get a basketball picture of him, his bony rear end in high school? Because I know he was probably bony.
Yes,
I saw his freshman picture at Wake Forest.
And I was just on the baseball team. There's a difference between playing baseball and being on the team. I was on the team. I did not play baseball. I got up 3 times, struck out 3 times. That was my career in baseball. But I can't go to high school without mentioning Coach Jackson. Coach Jackson picked me up every day in that orange Volkswagen Beetle and made sure I got to school every day in middle school. And he was my middle school math coach, and I love math. And he's one of the reasons that I love math.
Do.
Yeah. So getting to high school, playing. Made it back to playing quarterback.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my 10th grade year, I got my tooth kicked out. So I didn't play my 10th grade year because I was on injured reserve. But then my junior and my senior year, got back and started playing and starting at quarterback. So, when you're the quarterback, you're the quote unquote leader of the team, even if you don't really deserve it. And I didn't think I deserved it at the time. But Coach Joe, my high school football coach, he came to me 2 days in a row. Said, hey, Des, back in those days, call you by your last name. Hey, Clark, make sure you get the guys out there and, you do the 7-on-7, route tree, this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
I said, Coach, I got you. 2 days in a row. But I knew that second day that I didn't do it because I went to go play basketball.
Yes.
Basketball team, we were ranked number 1. Football team after Ray Lewis, wasn't a whole lot going on.
Yeah, you got to say more about that later, but finish.
Yeah. So I went to go play basketball. And I knew that he was going to be upset. So I tried to dodge him all day. But as I was turning the corner, we locked eyes. And I love Coach Joe to death, so I got to say it in the right way. Never say that he choked me. I would just say that he applied pressure around my neck in a very, very forceful but loving way. To the point where I don't know if it's in my head that my feet wasn't touching the ground or my feet wasn't actually touching the ground. I felt like it.
Yeah.
And once I got back on the ground and really collected myself after like crying because I thought he was going to kill me, he said, son, all you have is your word and your name. And when you lose, if you ever lose that, you've lost it all. And that was probably the best piece of advice that I've ever received. And it had nothing to do with football. It had nothing to do with sports. It had everything to do with life. And to this day, my name is the most important thing I have. And it came because of what Coach Joe told me on that day for screwing up.
Yeah, I really appreciate when you share that story and his comment. I have to believe that there's been 100 times or more that I've used that simple statement as guidance and advice for my own children. Mm-hmm. And I think, man, you've touched tens of thousands of us with that story. I can imagine. I mean, you start to think, like, Coach, you've touched hundreds of thousands of people through the impact of one young man with those words.
Yeah.
And
if you allow me to go a little bit deeper on that.
Please.
I think too many times we don't take the time to define who we are or who we want to be, right? Mm-hmm. And we have that ability to do that. And that's what I took from that, right? My name and my word. Like, what does that mean to me?
Yeah.
Like, I get to define that.
Right.
And here's the thing, if you don't define it, somebody else is probably going to define it for you. So whatever it is that you see for yourself, what you believe yourself to be, or what you believe yourself to be in the future, go ahead and name it and say, this is who I am. This is how I'm going to be. This is what my life is going to be like. And that's your word. And just stand by and be unshakable with it. Don't let anybody come and be able to make you take a detour somewhere else because of what they say or their opinion. The only one that matters is you.
Yeah, and I like it when you say be unshakable. It's not on what you've said, in terms of what you've said of who you are or what you committed to doing, right? And our 12 to 15 years together as friends and business partners and collaborators on projects and speaking at conferences together, I have always seen you follow through. And
Well, I'm gonna be real and I'm gonna be transparent, right?
yeah,
Because this, I don't want to sit here and act like I'm 100%, right? Because,
well, none of us are.
Because when we do that, right, people don't think that they can measure up, and it's probably gonna be somebody that sit here and say, you know what, if he can do that, I can do that. But I also want people to know, and I thought about this when I was coming up here. Me and you, we worked together.
Yes.
We were partners.
Yes.
And I felt like it was times I was going through like personal things during that time. And I kind of lost myself in those times. And I forgot who I was, not in a sense of identity, but kind of the power that I have in the belief of myself, right? I lost a little bit of that for like 5-7 years, and it took a while for me to get back there. And in all honesty, I was telling myself coming up here, if I wouldn't have lost that belief, I probably would be here in Detroit with you right now. But
Yeah.
I was doubting myself.
Sure.
And it's okay, it's okay, because once I did rediscover myself, then I got back to work, and then I started believing in myself, and then I said, I'm going to be I don't know where this came from. I'm going to be $100 million company owner. And I had to convince myself of that's what I'm going to be.
Yes.
And now it's unshakable. Can't nobody tell me anything different.
Yes.
And I started in a business that I had no type of experience.
Yeah.
I never worked in the business. I was dumb enough or courageous enough, whichever one you want to put it, to say that that's who I am. And that's who I am.
Yeah. I mean, and look, and I love it for you, even as much as I think whether it was me or Izzy or others, we were like, wait, what? What are you doing? It's like, no, man, just keep speaking and coaching. Keep writing books.
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about? You're getting into logistics. But man, like, hey, I'm happy for you because you're happy. And candidly, like, we all know that there's a direct correlation between somebody saying, hey, I feel like challenged, I feel inspired, I feel happy, and the quality of the input. Right? When you don't feel those things, you're not in that vibe or that energy, you're not going to give your best. So the fact that you got so excited about it, I mean, that was exciting to see from the outside looking in at your next chapter.
Yeah, absolutely. When I struggle on the weekends because I want to get back to work, and I have to like actively tell myself to shut it down, because my wife deserves her time. My son deserves his time.
Yes.
But I know I'm in the right space, because I know, like, sometimes I can't even sleep because I just want to get back up and get started again.
Yeah, you're running towards it.
Yeah. Like, I get up in the morning and I'm gone. Like, and it's not one of those things where, what's coming up today?
Yeah.
It's like, no, what's coming up today? What do I get to knock out? What do I get to build? And I know we're going to get into it a little bit more, but who can I affect today with what we're doing together? As far as the people who work with me and their families, and the people that we work for as their vendors and getting their stuff here, there, and everywhere, like, that is exciting.
Yeah, and so let's get there maybe a little bit quicker than we originally thought and intended, but I don't want to overlook your time at Wake Forest, because I got to tell you, I mean, like, I look back at the stats and I think about these things, and it's like, hey, You went to Wake Forest. You went to Wake Forest as a wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You went there as a wide receiver. What was your 40 time? You know I got to call this out because I was even way slower, but I got to call it out because this always makes me smile.
So officially at the NFL Combine, I ran a 4.8840.
So my man goes to Wake Forest as a wide receiver in the ACC. Two-time second-team All-ACC, a two-time team MVP, and you finished your career at that time as the ACC all-time leading receiver with 216 receptions for nearly 3,000 yards, averaging over 13 yards per reception in 20 tutties.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was a good career.
And couldn't run a lick.
You couldn't run. Talk about that. I mean, what was it? Why was there so much calm, composure, and confidence knowing that there were guys running a half second faster than you in the same position?
Well, first, I didn't know that I was that slow because I didn't figure that out until the NFL Combine. So, in all honesty, I probably thought I was like decent with my 40 time, but I was big though.
Yes.
So, I came to Wake Forest after a summer of eating at Brothers Barbecue. That's where I worked at. So I was 190 when I started in the summer. I got to Wake Forest at 220.
Wow.
And they thought that I was a linebacker coming in. And I was like, no, I'm a receiver.
6'3", 220.
The next year I was 230. The next year I was 240. And then my senior year I played receiver at 250. So I was able to use my size more than my speed and quickness to help me be a good receiver. Like I was bigger than anybody who I lined up against, but I still had to be able to run. I still had to be able to get in and out of breaks. So those things were, I guess, I was more quick than I was fast, straight line speed. And so, just polish those skills of being able to get in and out of breaks and learning how to use my body to catch passes over smaller defenders.
Yeah, knowing that as you think about that now, we have a lot of listeners, whether it's student athletes at the high school or collegiate level or parents that listen into the show. I mean, what is the type of advice and guidance that you might give a young man going from high school to college football in terms of like, hey, how do you identify and really drill down on the strengths you have? And what are those things that you focus on as you get to that next level?
Yeah, the first thing I'll say is don't look too far ahead. Like look at the immediate stuff.
Yeah,
a lot of people they're looking, 3, 4, 5 years, or I want to get to the league. For me, it was when I was in high school. It was I want to get a scholarship. So I had to be one of the best players in the area to get the scholarship. Once I got to Wake Forest, it was hey, I want to start, right? I want to start, and I was the backup my first year. So then my second year, I'm starting. Now I want to be the best receiver on the team. And then my second year, I became the best receiver on the team. My third year, now I want to be the best receiver in the ACC. Then I led the ACC. But it was like a progression, right? It was like, all right, where do I need to be at this year? And then what skills do I need to develop to get me there this year? Now, I had a lot of good coaches that I told these things to. And so they knew exactly where I wanted to be and where I wanted to go. And I think that's important too, is let people know like what you're trying to get accomplished.
So like when you wanted to go from playing center in middle school back to quarterback.
Yes. They knew that immediately.
Let Coach Jay know. Coach Jay, hey, I'm gonna do you a solid for this one season.
Yeah, that's it. And when I got to high school, I'm playing quarterback.
Fondest memories of your time at Wake Forest. I mean, you played for one of my personal favorite coaches, Coach Caldwell. Fondest memories of your time playing at Wake Forest. And is there, let's go with the fondest memory first. Then I want to go to Coach C for a second.
Fondest memory, we weren't that good, so.
I know that. I'm not even going to talk about the records.
Yeah, so.
But God bless you. I mean, it's still D1 football.
It's still D1 football at ACC.
That's it.
And we were playing against Northwestern. And this was the year that they actually went to the Rose Bowl. And so they were supposed to blow us out.
Dude, my boy Donnie Holmes, he was a linebacker at that time with Coach Pat.
Yeah.
They had a mean linebacker squad.
Beat the brakes off of them.
Yeah.
We beat the brakes off. No, I can't say we beat the brakes off of them. We beat them.
Yeah.
We weren't supposed to be in the game. And I caught a post. It was probably maybe 35, 40 yards, a post route with 51 seconds to go at the end of the game to win that game. And that was probably, that's when I gained like all of my confidence. That was early in my sophomore year. And that kind of catapulted my confidence because we just beat this team that's supposed to be all of this. And I caught the winning touchdown. And so from there, it was kind of all downhill.
Wait, was that at Wake Forest?
It was at Wake Forest.
I'm looking it up right now.
We beat them 2 years in a row.
So you beat them 27-20 that year.
Was it 27-20?
That's what it says.
Was this 19?
It's September 6, 1997.
That was the second time.
Oh, that was the second time. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, hey, folks, I just fact checked Dizzy Dez, and he is right. I mean, they won.
Yeah.
They won.
Yeah.
And they were a good squad
really
in the
good team.
in the late 90s.
Yeah.
Very good team in the late 90s. Wow. Talk a little bit about Coach Caldwell. We know him one way, from the outside looking into football, but talk about just what he was like as a coach, as a steward and developer of men, and maybe any real significant deposit that you've taken from the time playing for him.
Coach Caldwell really taught me how to be a man.
Say more.
I mean, that dude, when you're around Coach Caldwell, all you see is and all you feel is polish. Like the guy is so well spoken, his demeanor is always of the highest caliber type demeanor. And he carries himself in a way that it demands respect. And just being around him, I've never been around a person that was so eloquent in his communication. That taught me a lot. Whenever I had to go and sit across from him in his meeting room, it was intimidating, but you always walked out feeling good about yourself. So I think just beyond coaching, right? Just
yes.
I got married my sophomore year in college. I had to go run that past him, and he gave me advice. He didn't necessarily tell me what to do. He just said, "Hey, if you're gonna do this, make sure you check these boxes. Make sure that you're ready for it. Those type of things." And I appreciated all of those talks that I had with him one-on-one because, like I said, it was like he was teaching me how to be a man every time I had those conversations with him. Now on the football field, a lot of people don't know that Coach Caldwell can get fiery now. He has that demeanor on the sideline, and it was that game that you just fact checked.
Yeah, Northwestern game.
Yeah, we were in the locker room, and he was going through his his pregame speech, and he doesn't do this all the time, but man, he got so fired up. He went. We had this running back. What was his name? Man, I'm forgetting his name, but he jumped across a couple weight benches. He ran and got up in his face and pushed him and just started going off. And we was like, oh, damn, like what is going on in here? And he got us so pumped for that game. I believe that's why I think we went out and opened up right away in that game and held on at the end. But coach can get fiery now. And a lot of people don't know that about him because he has that calm demeanor.
Yes.
Yeah.
You had an extremely accomplished collegiate career. Where was your mind at as you were looking at the prospect of entering the draft and continuing to play football at the highest level?
That came at the end of my junior year.
Okay.
That was the year that I led the ACC in catches. I think I had 72 catches that year. and I petitioned the NFL at the end of the football season to see, hey, if I was to leave and go to the NFL, where would I be drafted? Now, I wasn't thinking about really doing it.
Mm-hmm.
If I could see, then I just wanted to see. And I got a report back saying, hey, you'll probably go 5th round to being like an undrafted free agent.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I really started thinking about it. Like I was saying earlier, I was so short-term focused that I wasn't thinking that far down.
Sprint.
Yeah. And then going into my senior year, that's when I started to think, all right, I can actually get to the league. And then you get hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the draft day comes, and then, I mean, do you remember where you were? Who was with you?
I was at my mom's apartment. We had about 30 people at my mom's apartment for a party. And, you know, you sit and you watch first round, second round, but my agent told me, and he was spot on. He said, if it's a good draft for tight ends, I get drafted in the 4th round. He said, if it's a bad draft for tight ends, I get drafted in the 6th round. There was a tight end from Washington, and there was a tight end from Ole Miss, Rufus French.
Yes.
I remember his name. And my agent said those 2 tight ends will have to go. And then if they go early, it's going to be a good draft for tight ends, and you'll probably go in the 4th round. Rufus French didn't get drafted that year.
Wow.
So I went in the 6th round.
Yeah.
And I was just waiting for him to come off the board the whole time. And when you're sitting there and you're waiting for your name in the draft, you kind of start getting nervous, like, am I ever going to get picked?
Yes.
And around the 5th round, that's when people started calling. The first 2 calls was, hey, if you don't get drafted, we'll love to have you as a free agent. But then it was maybe the 6th or 7th call. We get into the 6th round, and that's when Mike Shanahan called, and just real short, simple, sweet. How would you feel about being a Denver Bronco? And absolutely, we'll love it. He was like, okay, so if no one takes you, we're going to take you with our pick in the 6th round. And so now we just got to wait for them to pick. I think it was 2 picks later. And then you see it go across the screen. Hey, Desmond Clark is drafted by the Denver Broncos. And then that's, the party starts. Everybody's happy, man.
Yes.
It's like you've dreamed about this for so long. And it was one of those surreal moments. But the best part about that was just watching my mom and her smile, because it was her that sacrificed, to make herself better so she can have her boys be better in life.
Yeah.
Right. So that was the most satisfying moment to me, because I told you when I was 14, I made that decision.
That's right.
And I also went home and I told my mom that same day that I was going to be successful.
Yeah.
And
I remember that
to
story.
me, that was like keeping that promise to her that I was going to be successful.
Yeah.
And just watching her smile, that was probably the best moment of my life when it comes, especially to my mom.
And you walked right into a pretty first-class locker room.
Oh yeah.
I mean, just the fact that you played on a roster with Shannon Sharp, I was always like, what?
Man, when I walked in the room and seen Shannon Sharp, I was like, what?
Yeah. I'm still saying what when I see him.
Dude.
I saw him at a game in like real life. I'm saying real life like I'm a child. But like I saw him at a basketball game courtside in real life, and I was like, wow.
Yeah.
I'm like, I gotta take better care of myself.
Specimen.
Unbelievable.
Like, and so you seen him fully dressed.
Oh, well, I've seen him. Yeah, right. Yeah,
so,
go ahead.
So I used to have to walk around the locker room with this dude shirt off.
Yeah. Oh,
and look and say, okay, do I have to be like that?
Yeah.
To play in the NFL? Because if so, it ain't gonna happen.
Yeah.
Because the dude was just a walking muscle.
Yeah, I'm not going to be your workout partner, buddy.
Exactly.
Oh man. So 3 years with the Broncos. I want to speed up to when I fell in love with you. 3 years with the Broncos, a short stint with the Dolphins, which, hey, I wouldn't have hated you if you stayed in Miami. But then you end up with the Bears. And the Bears went on an absolute tear. I love my boy, Coach Lovie Smith. I think one of the greatest coaches in the NFL. I mean, I won't even say what I thought about when he transitioned away from the Bears, because then I might not be able to go to Bears games. But what a run.
Yeah.
What a run the team had. What a run some of you guys had. I mean, some of the guys that you played with, right? We were just at Devin Hester's Hall of Fame ceremony at Soldier Field a couple of weeks back with the guys. And I'm sitting in our suite, and I'm just looking at the guys that are inside the suite. I'm like, man, this was
squad.
If when these guys were yoked and they were at their prime and they're in a locker room, I'm like, this is why you went back to the NFC Championship multiple times. This is why you ran for the Super Bowl in 06-07. I mean, just talk about the time in Chicago.
The time in Chicago was great. I mean, you talk about those players like Devin Hester.
Oh.
You talk about Brian Urlacher. You talk about guys like Thomas Jones.
Peanut
Tillman. Double nickel. Lance Briggs.
Oh, my gosh.
Mike Brown.
What a nightmare.
On the offensive side of the ball, Olin Kreutz.
Yes.
Musa Muhammad.
Yeah.
Bernard Berrien. Guys like
Roberto
that.
Garza.
Garza. Greg Olsen, who came around a little bit later. Man, I played with some studs on that football team.
Yes.
And you know, Levy was the guy for all of that. Man, when I think about just the talent that I play with and the level of a football player, now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, I don't know if too many guys could say that they play with that type of talent. If guys are not in the Hall of Fame, which we have a few, they're like borderline.
Yeah, they're on the short list.
Like Lance made eight Pro Bowls in a row. Peanut Tillman, I mean,
yes,
he has his own.
Yeah,
his own turnover call, the peanut punch. Thomas Jones.
Yeah,
he was on the ballot for the Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
was Musa Muhammad on a ballot? I'm not sure, but if
I don't know. But he was on a tear too.
Yeah, he called like 800 passes in his NFL career. So, man, those were really good teams, and I think that Lovie really did the thing that Lovie did. He let us be us.
Mm-hmm. Say more about that.
So he had this coaching style where, I'll just sum it up like this. He told us one time. He said, you know, I expect for you guys to be men. I'm gonna treat you like grown men. But if you get sent to the principal's office too many times, you'll find yourself getting suspended. That's all he had to say, and we understood. Like, he wasn't checking up on guys to make sure, hey, you did this and you did that. Whenever we had something that we wanted to take to him, we took it to our captains. Our captains went and took it to him. I would say 75% of the time he gave us our way. And those other times where he said, no, we need to do such and such, we were okay.
You fell in line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the kind of, for me anyway, he was more like a father than a coach, like that type of respect.
So my few interactions with Coach Caldwell and Coach Lovie Smith, even back in my days in Chicago, they just kind of strike me as similar. They like, I'm not saying that they were the same in a lot of ways, but my brief times with them left me feeling that they were like from the same time, the same sort of stoic, stoic but not dictator approach to serving, leading, stewarding grown men in the most violent sport in professional sports today.
Right.
And somehow got these guys to play together well.
Right. And I love how you said the stewardship, the leadership. One of the things that I see in both of those men is that I think they wanted the men that they were coaching to be better men than actual just players, right? And the other thing that I see with both of these coaches, both of these men, is, you know, when you're always getting yelled at all the time, you kind of grow numb to it. Neither one of these coaches raise their voice. But when they did, the few times that they did, they didn't have to say much because you knew that they meant business. And so it's like I said, it's like your father. Your father get to raising his voice, it's like, oh damn, he means business, so I better fall in line. And that's kind of the respect that both of those coaches demanded.
When you look back on your time playing football, was there anything significant in terms of your intentions that weren't, like you felt like the job wasn't done when you finally hung up the pads for the last time?
I go back to Denver.
Mm-hmm.
I forget the offensive line coach out there. He once told me, this was during a Dallas game on Thanksgiving, and I was playing okay, but he came and he was yelling at me. I don't know what he was saying. He used to dog cuss people, but he did it to everybody. So Terrell Davis to everybody else. So if he's doing it to everybody, you just take it, right?
Yeah, you are going to take that.
Yeah. and he said something to me. He said, it's not that you're not winning. Yeah. It's just you're not giving it your all. And that confused me for a second, that I'm not giving it my all, but I'm winning. What's the difference?
Yeah.
What's the difference? But there's a huge difference. Like, you could be winning or you can be dominating, right? And I think that's what he wanted. And that's what he was trying to get out of me. And I thought about that when I got cut from Denver. Because my mindset was, hey, I just caught 51 passes, 6 touchdowns. I'm 25 years old. I'm like one of the most up-and-coming tight ends in the NFL. And they had just brought Shannon Sharp back after they signed me.
Yeah.
And then I got hurt in camp. But I'm still thinking, oh, I'm cool. I'm all right.
Yeah.
I'm good. And they cut me.
Yeah, it's a business.
They cut me. Yeah. I never seen it coming. And I learned then, like you have on your shirt right now, all gas, no brakes. And I never felt comfortable again playing in the NFL. I said I could never let myself get comfortable again. Because if I could catch 51 passes and 6 touchdowns as a backup.
Yes.
As a backup. I was a backup. And still get cut, you're never safe.
Yeah, you look at like the tight ends this season. If we just draw a line across the middle on starting tight ends, a tight end 1 across all the teams in the league, 51 receptions and 6 tutties is in the top half, and you were the backup.
I was the backup.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the time when mindset shift again. Like, no, you cannot be comfortable. You always have to keep your foot on the gas. You always have to be giving it your all, like Coach was telling me during that game, if you want to make it in this league.
So you hang up the pads. You go through a couple years of searching for what that next chapter is really going to be that Desmond Clark's going to pour into. You start writing books. You start coaching. You start talking to youths. You start talking to entrepreneurs. You start talking to executives. You start dabbling in the space of really coaching and consulting and developing others through, I think, the lessons learned in the story of your life. When did you know? I mean, when did you know, hey, I'm going to write some books, I'm going to be a professional speaker, and I'm going to be a coach to high performers in the world of business?
I don't think I ever told you this before. It was because of you. I don't think I ever told you this before. When you left Mass Mutual Chicago and came here.
Yeah. See, Michigan, look at, I gave up everything.
There was such a void in leadership at that point. Everything just changed. And
I buy a lot of snacks, folks. Just so you know, if we ever work together in the same office, I buy a lot of snacks.
No, so I'm not going to let you get away with that. I'm gonna tell a story. So you remember we had a running back from New Hampshire.
Oh, my man. Yeah, I don't remember his name.
He had the best name of all time.
He did. Oh.
It'll come to me while I'm telling the story. But you called him in the office, and I don't know what you said to the kid, but he came and knocked on my door, and he said, "Hey Desmond, let me talk to you for a second." I was like, "Come in." He's like, "Man, I just got finished talking to Manny, and I don't know whether he was telling me I need to like get my and he cussed like get my shit together, or was he complimenting me?" I was like, I couldn't tell because the whole time he was getting on me, he was smiling at me, and he made me feel good about it.
Yeah,
and
I was getting on him.
And I just put my hand on his shoulder. I was like, "Welcome to Manny's world." I was like, no, he was telling you need to get your stuff together, but also he was he was motivating you at the same time to do it. Yeah. He was like, "Yeah, that's what it felt like."
Thanks, bro.
He turned around and he walked out, and that's the kind of leadership that was there. And once it was gone, that's when I seen how much leadership really meant.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And my love and my passion for doing what I was doing at that point kind of left also when you left. And this was during that time when I kind of lost myself, and it wasn't me saying, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be this. It was me feeding off of your energy saying, hey man, we could do this type of thing together. Right.
Yes.
And you brought me in to do something special. But when you left,
mm-hmm. Yeah,
that motivation left also.
Yeah.
So I got to a point where I had to like just be real with myself. Mm-hmm. Say, I don't know if I want to keep doing this. Mm-hmm. And that's when I said, I really want to go out and inspire people, right? I want to talk about the things that I've been through and help other people be better mm-hmm. because of it, and bring that greatness out of other people. And that's when I wrote this book, Principles of Winning. Mm-hmm. And that's when I got out there and I started speaking and motivating and just wanting to see people do good.
When you sat down and wrote, well, first of all, look, thank you for sharing that. As you know, I mean, I'm a reflection of my environment that I grew up in, right? So whether it was my folks, my brothers, my wife, Samantha today, all the many coaches that I've had throughout my life, Coach Gary Ridgely, Pat Montalbano. Pat Montalbano had a blue station wagon. He was my guy, drove us to everything. God bless Coach Pat Montalbano, man. He had so much patience for us since we were little boys. Coach Nick Morosis at DePaul, Coach Ray Hall, our linebacker coach. But, we're kind of the output, the product of the people mm-hmm. who have had the greatest impact in our lives, right? Mm-hmm. So, one, thanks for saying that. Thanks for just sharing that. The book, though, the book was written really with intention, right? Mm-hmm. And I've reflected on the book a number of times since when you first released the book. Talk about, from your perspective, who's that book written for? Who should be picking up Principles of Winning today?
I think anyone who wants to be excellent, mm-hmm. who is striving for that standard, and someone who sees something for their life, they have a mental picture of it, and they say, okay, I'm going to get it. So the name of the book is Principles of Winning: 5 Keys to Create a Standard of Excellence. And I talk about those 5 keys for myself, or those 5 principles that led to me developing the standard of excellence that I have for myself. And let's just say that too, that excellence is something that is arbitrary mm-hmm. in nature, right? So my standard is not somebody else's standard. You have to define your own standard, right? Yes. And by me telling my story, I'm just giving examples of how I did it. And hopefully it inspires somebody to say, okay, here's what I've been through in my life. Here's parts of my life that I can learn from, that I can become better from, because no one's life is the same. Mm-hmm. So everybody has to go a different route. I had one of my family members, 19 years old, and he said, "Hey, my goal is to make $4,000 a month. That's my life goal." And I swear, I was like, I can't say what I said to him, but I was like, "Get out of here, man!" And he was like, "Oh, hold on, man." He was like, "We're not the same people." I was like, "What you mean by now? Tell me what you mean by that."
That's right.
And he was like, "Man, but you played in the NFL and this." I was like, "Don't tell me about that, because all you doing is right now. You're saying that I'm better than you." And I say, "You're not. I'm not better than you." I was like, I took a path that you cannot take
Yes.
because you don't play football, but your path can take you beyond anything that I've done. But I was like, if you don't believe that, and you believe just because somebody was on TV that they got it better than you or can do better than you, I was like, you're already killing everything that you can accomplish. So just going back to it, is like defining what it is that you want your life to be.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that. I mean, I often am struck when I listen to young student athletes, men or women, talk about and share about the people that they're following or listening to or that they're interested in, and it really sometimes I wouldn't say I worry, but I'm surprised at how often I hear names of people that are perceived to be popular because they're athletic, they're good looking, they're fashionable, they're funny, and they kind of connect that with being successful. And that has nothing to do with being successful in life. Like success in life, it's not a direct correlation between any one of those or the many other ways we could describe who people find interesting and attractive today to actually being successful in this one life we get to live. And at the end of the day, we each independently get to define that and also define what we believe excellence looks like, right?
Right.
But I think thinking and envisioning life without a limit, without a ceiling, without caging ourselves into something is something that I think as mentors, advocates, and coaches that we owe, the young men and women in this country.
Right. And I think that the best question that we can ask someone is, do you believe in yourself?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what I had to get back to. I had to sit down and get real with myself and say, man, do you believe in yourself?
And what is it that you believe
Yes.
about yourself?
Yes.
Right?
Yes. I know what I can do. Now, am I going to get up and do it?
Yeah.
Am I going to stay focused? Am I going to stay on task? Am I going to, look at this, like I always talk about the definition of winning, the definition of the word win, I should say. And that is to gain or succeed through struggle, right? Am I going to look at the struggle? Because and struggle is not a bad thing. We all struggle somewhere, right? I remember the story that you told me when you first got here as CEO. You struggled asking yourself, man,
daily.
Am I going to be able to do this?
Yeah.
But then just saying, okay, where is it that I'm lacking, that I need to get better, and being able to just attack that, and not worry about how I'm gonna do it, what just attack it, wherever it is that I'm battling or that I can't seem to break that ceiling. Look at it, develop a game plan around it, and go and attack it. It's no different from sports. When we played against Ndamukong Suh, we know he's a beast. So I guarantee you that we had two people on him, right? Because he was going to be a problem. So that was going to be the struggle. And we had to develop a game plan around the struggle if we wanted to be successful. It's no different in life.
Yeah. And I always love when you bring him up or Izzy brings him up because I know he's close to him. But I mean, like, one of the biggest menaces I've ever seen in football. And yet he's like one of the nicest, kindest, smartest guys when you see him on a personal level or get to hear him speak on a personal level. I love the fact that you brought him up. Look, Look, I love the book. I'm super thankful that you flew into Detroit in 0-degree weather from your nearly 80-degree weather in Florida. Tomorrow, you're delivering a talk to our team at Mass Mutual Great Lakes on the mindset of champions. I've also heard you deliver talks on the book, Principles of Winning, and many other talks for business owners, entrepreneurs, executives who want to reach out to you about speaking, about coaching and consulting teams. How do they get in touch with you today?
Yeah, I'm all over social media, Instagram at Des Clark, DZClark 88, but I'm most active on LinkedIn. And if they're, an executive or someone, that's the easiest place to find me is on LinkedIn. And I would say, hey, go check out the stuff that I write. Go check out my perspectives on business and leadership and team development. And if they connect with you, hey, let's talk about it. That I'm so passionate about teams and leadership, especially leadership, especially where we're at in today in society. We need more great leaders, right? To step up and say, I'll take it on. I'll lead. I'll be the example.
Yes.
I'll be the role model. I believe it was a time when we were coming up, the thing was, I'm not a role model, right? You remember those commercials?
Yeah.
And I think now we need more people to step up and say, no, I'm not going to back down from it. I'll be a role model.
Yes.
I'll lead the way. I'll lead from the front. And I want to bring everybody with me.
Yeah. I love that. And we've talked about it before that, everybody's born into leadership. I mean, leadership really is for everyone. And it doesn't take a whole lot to be kind, polite, to pay compliments, to inspire and encourage others to pursue their biggest dreams. And, you're one of the closest friends I have that's always been an advocate of mine. Gang, listen, for those of you that listen today, the conversation here in the Podium Lab with 12-year NFL veteran, serial entrepreneur, author, speaker, coach, and developer of leadership and teams, Desmond Clark. You can find Desmond at Desmond Clark on LinkedIn, but again on Instagram, it's at Dez Clark 88, the double eights. Either way, just ask Uncle Google. If you can't find him, ask Uncle Google. Uncle Google will show you the way.
Big brother, find you wherever you're at.
That's right. Hey, man, thanks for flying in to have this conversation. The team is super excited to hear from you tomorrow morning. A conversation on the mindset of champions. And, brother, it's always a privilege.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you.